welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today's reading was literally inspired by the wonderful Reena at Gold Key Guidance, because she did a pick a card on this topic very recently. So the topic is, what do I need to remember that I have forgotten? And I thought it was such a wonderful topic because we all have forgotten dreams, forgotten ambitions, forgotten loves, forgotten spiritual paths, all sorts of things in our busy, busy lives. And I thought, what a beautiful topic to look at, remembering that and reimagining that and bringing that back for our highest good. So Reena did a brilliant set of readings. She always does brilliant readings. She's a brilliant reader, basically. And I do actually have the link to her pick a card on this topic as well too, which I highly recommend you check out, because we all probably have more than one thing that we've forgotten that would be good to remember, or it may be that there's a great synergy between whatever you find in these readings here and what Reena has to say. And she is an amazing reader, just gets to the heart of things, great depth psychologically and emotionally and so forth. Highly, highly recommend her channel and the reading in particular here that inspired this. So I wanted to say that first so that it was clear that that came directly from her inspiration. I also want to note before I go into the pile choice here that I'm using a particular tarot deck today, which is the 4th edition of the Broken Mirror Tarot. So people who are tarot fans may be well acquainted with this particular deck because it is the 4th edition of it. It's a very, very beautiful and special deck that has artwork that looks like stained glass windows, and for me it just seemed the perfect choice for this, because when I think back to things in my childhood times, say, singing in church choirs and so forth, being completely enraptured by stained glass windows, it sort of triggers a very deep and sort of joyous spiritual sort of side of me and memory in me. So to me this deck really resonates strongly, and I wanted to particularly use it today as well too, because if you were seeing this reading when it was sort of filmed and published, which is near the end of May 2022, then they actually have a Kickstarter going at the moment for the 5th edition of this beautiful deck. So if you do like it, you can go and check that out. And as part of that, you can get add-ons with the 4th edition. They do change it, from what I can tell, just slightly each edition. And in the 5th edition, they also have a number of options that you can choose from, each of which have a additional card. And I love the concept of the Emerald edition, and it has a extra card, which is a peacock, which is highly alchemical and so very interesting to me because I love alchemy. But as I say, I don't have any affiliation with them. I nothing like that. I just really love the deck, and I would think for anybody, I know some people who come to my readings really like to sort of look at the decks and get the ones that appeal to them. So I thought I'd just let you know, if it's in that timing, that the Kickstarter is open. And if it's later, because this is a timeless reading, then no doubt there will be places that you can get the 5th edition if you want. So I just wanted to say those sort of two things as a opening, to acknowledge Reena's wonderful work and the inspiration for this reading, and also to acknowledge where the makers of the beautiful Broken Mirror Tarot are at the moment with developing their next edition. So with no further ado, let's have a look at what we're going to have for pile choices. So I will put down numbers, as I always do, for those who just like to use the visual and the number to do that. But what I've done, and to let you know a bit about what the reading will be like, is that I've chosen 4 cards that I felt could represent certain things that we might have forgotten that we need to remember from the Fairy Forest Oracle deck, a beautiful Oracle deck. There's another card from that deck as part of this at the beginning. So at the beginning we'll be using sort of the messages of the Fae, which seems to be the liminal space to me, where things could be forgotten but also recovered. Hence using these as the starting point, plus one other from this deck, plus also a little bit of Greek mythology, a little bit of astrology, a little bit of spiritual guidance to get a sense of what is the area or areas in your life where there may be something that you've forgotten that you need to remember. Then we're going to use the tarot to really look into that in more detail. What is it, or what are the key elements of it? Why is it important to remember it now? What's Spirit's advice around that? And then I'm going to use a number of cards as almost prompts to help the memory and to bring it out and coax it out, that pick up things like the different ways that we take in information and remember information and different sort of spiritual guidance to finish out the reading. So that's how it's going to be structured. As I say, to help possibly, depending on how you choose with your choice of pile, and you can always go to more than one reading if you want. But I'm using the Fairy Forest cards here. So for pile number 1, we have the Wild Hunt. For pile number 2, we have Oath. For pile number 3, we have Sorceress. And for pile number 4, we have the Weaver. So one of those images or the sort of words that are associated with it may connect you to a reading or readings. Whatever you do to do that, you do you, as I always say. The timestamps will be in the description box below, and I'll see you in your reading. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So we have the 2 cards from the Fairy Forest, some Greek mythology, spiritual sort of energy and astrology here. This reading is pretty clear, I think, on the realm of your life where you have forgotten something you need to remember. So if this doesn't resonate, possibly go to another reading because it's pretty clear. This is about love. This is about passion. This is about falling in love, falling in love again or falling in love for the first time or that moment when you sort of meet someone and you have that sort of wild energy around it and so forth, because we have the Wild Hunt, which is the card that brought you here. So there was something, if that is the card that brought you here anyway, there was something you resonated to about remembering how to have passion and excitement and going for what you want. And with Nike, this sort of sense of victory is possible. You can actually have this thing. It is not, if you have felt with the shadow energy here and with changes with Charon and transitions around love before where things haven't worked out, if you felt maybe I can't have that, this is saying no. Remember the thrill with Astrid here, which is about love, fire, sensuality, fertility, all the things that you felt when you fell in love before. So, or that you fell in love with the concept of love. So if you're young and this is the first love that's come in, you're being reminded about what it was that you loved and you wanted to love and how you saw love when you were very young, in terms of the sort of maybe fairy stories or movies you watched or books that you read. You are meant to remember that side of yourself, the sensual side, the excited side, the side that just goes in and does it, that doesn't feel held back in some way, that is fully in touch with love, nature, and what is beautiful and what is exciting and so forth. So there is something, if it hasn't already happened in your life, it's coming in soon to reawaken that, to reawaken your sense of love, sensuality, connection, all of those sorts of things. And it is likely with Shadow and Charon here to have been something after something didn't work. So I think for most of you, it's likely to be after you had a heartbreak and you've forgotten that sort of sense of excitement. It could also be for some of you that is a reinvigoration of a relationship that you're in. It doesn't have to, it could be that it started incredibly passionately. And then with Vesta, which is around other things, the sort of sense of hearth and home, some may have transitioned into relationships, living together or whatever, and all the sort of shadow and elements of day-to-day life had taken some of that joy out of it. If that's the case, then there's a reawakening. That Spirit is saying, remember that love, remember that passion, because it's still there. It's just that the changes and these sort of issues of life might have actually held it back in some way. But you are meant to be victorious in love. That your life, in this particular life, in this life path, is meant to have a great love or a number of great loves potentially, and that sort of sense of passion and so forth. And I think the Spirit is saying that you won't forget the shadow that you have around this as well too. You're not going you're going into the Wild Hunt, but you're going in prepared. You're going in understanding who you are and what it is that you love, and also the longer term changes that come with love. So, but it is something about that. This is for people who maybe have let the excitement of love and life dim a bit with all the changes and the sort of requirements. And Vesta is very responsible, so the responsibility and also the sacred sort of side of things. For some of you, it may be that because of disappointments or feeling overwhelmed by the nature of love and passion, you actually chose with Vesta, like the Vestal Virgins, to sort of step back and be very spiritual. But that the transition energy for you and so forth, and dealing with the shadow rather than just hiding away with it is Spirit is saying, remember the passion, remember the love. You're here for love. You are meant to have love, and you are meant to have the sort of passion and joy in it. So there is something around your love nature that you have forgotten, whether it is how to be passionate in, a sort of day-to-day sort of life where there's lots of responsibilities, whether you've stepped away from it because you felt that wasn't spiritual, or you felt that your shadow came out, or you've been brokenhearted, whatever it is. But you are meant to go through the transition to victory. So let's have a look using the tarot at a little bit more detail. So I'm going to start firstly asking a bit more specifics about what it is that you've forgotten. Like what is that in more specific terms, and possibly why, depending on what Spirit wants to tell us. And then we want to ask Spirit why it's important that you remember it now. So, okay. So Spirit is saying firstly, there was something, there was a choice, there was a change, there was something that came out of the blue, possibly in a relationship. So for some of you, you may have been in what you thought was a stable relationship, and that was the one, and it broke apart. That is possible with Death and the Tower card here. So it is possible that part of the reason that it's important for you to remember this is to remember that it's not the only one, that it was one choice, one option, one process. You look as though you have felt alone for some time with the Five of Coins, but it's reversed, so you're meant to come out of that. For some of you, it is going to be a Tower relationship coming in. That you're meant to remember this, remember what it was to be passionate, and that you can be victorious and you can follow your love nature, and you know enough about your shadow to know how to deal with it because you've gone through something where you had to confront your shadow around this. But with the Five of Coins reversed, you are coming out of being alone. It does look like for most of you there was a pretty significant issue that was difficult around this. And this is saying that you are meant to remember the center of it, which was, the kind of the passion of it, because you're not meant to be alone. And you have done the work with your shadow. Like in a sense, if anything, it's saying that you are overemphasizing your shadow at the moment with the moon reversed and with shadow here. It is saying that there may have been something where you withdrew because of the intensity of a relationship that somehow didn't work out or was taking too much from you. You withdrew into the shadow, and you maybe look at the shadow more as defining you. And Spirit is saying, no, remember this passion. Remember what you felt. That's more you. You are someone who is here to love. But because you're here to love, and because you go into the wild hunt, then you do take the risk. And sometimes that risk works, and sometimes it's more devastating. But don't think the devastation is what defines you. It's not. You're meant to remember that electric feeling to start with, because something is coming in that has a lot more longer term basis for you with the King of Coins. And also with the Four of Coins, there's a sort of a beginning to something. But one of the things, it's saying a double message actually. So it could be a double message for any particular individual. Both might apply, or it might be depending upon who's coming to the reading. On one hand, it's saying there's an electric key relationship coming in, or you're experiencing it at the moment. It's sort of like forcing you to think about decisions and so forth, and to come out of almost a cloistered feeling of being alone. But also forcing you to not overemphasize the shadow, to accept that you will have the information you need when you need it, so that you can have and build a longer term relationship with someone that has more stability than maybe something before. For others, it's that you are already in, as I say, for some, I felt you might already be in a relationship that is very solid and very secure, but it's got a little bit stuck. It's got a little bit just kind of day-to-day humdrum. And this energy is coming through. Spirit is asking you to remember that electric energy that started, and the choices that forced for you in your life that brought you to this, because you're kind of getting caught then in the shadow that I think is more like domestic shadow and so forth. So for some of you, it is about something new that's coming in that has great long standing, but you have to remember, you have to get back into the positive energy of the Tower, the wild hunt, the sort of love, all of that kind of thing, so that you don't hide away and think, no, I can't have that, it's too shadowy. And for others, it's bringing the passion back into something. So let's ask why it's important for you to remember this, to remember that side of your nature. Wow. Okay. So firstly, the shadow card was almost the key card, I think, in all of this. What you are meant to remember is the passion, the excitement, the belief that you can have love and win in the game of love, because you can. But you have got so caught in that shadow and Charon, the transition energy, that you are living through the pain. You're remembering the pain of something and the conflict of something with the Three of Swords and the Five of Swords, rather than taking control. So it's really interesting with the Chariot coming up, because I feel like that's you getting in the Chariot, going into the wild hunt. Like it's you taking the reins again. That's why it's important. You need to take the reins again, because you've started to define yourself by something that didn't work, or patterns of things that didn't work. But taking the reins with the Chariot and moving towards the sun, I feel when I look at this particular Chariot card, I always feel like it's tilting towards the sun, towards your life path, towards what you are meant to do. Every time I've sort of seen that card, I sort of felt that was really key. So your love nature is very, very key. I suspect that Venus is very strong in your chart, actually, or it's being triggered at the moment very strongly. So this is about you letting go of the pain so that you can take the reins again, because passion is coming back. Passion is coming in an existing relationship or in one coming in. There's no doubt with the Knight of Wands, and it'll come in strong and fast, just like the Tower, just like the Wild Hunt. But you're meant to feel confident in that. There is a foundation for this, and you have the skills with the Magician to deal with it. You know, you are able to manifest this and bring in what you want. The problem with someone who has Magician manifestation skills around love is if you sit in the shadow and the feeling of disappointment or that something isn't going to work, that's what you'll bring in. But if you get back into this energy, the positive Tower energy, the Wild Hunt, the Chariot, you bring in, you use your skills to bring this in. That's why it's important that you remember this. So I'm just going to pull 3 cards for some advice from Spirit before we go into, as I said, what some of the advice and prompts might be to also really bring this to the surface and remind you of this. Okay. Spirit is saying that its main advice to you is to have confidence you're heading in the right direction, even when it feels a little bit overwhelming and electric. You have peace within the drama of it. Because, you know, Tower sort of relationships do feel very dramatic. So if you think about it, it's a bit like the Ten of Swords. It's like, oh my God. But then on the other hand, the Six of Swords is there. You have the peace. You are in control. You're in control of the Chariot. You can drive it the way you want. And you are not going to relive the same emotional patterns. You just need to let go of some of that energy, not stay in the worry about it, but stay in the peace of it. Because this is meant, you know, there is something coming in for you that is meant to happen. As I say, it could be the reviving of a relationship that's got a bit stuck, or it could be the return of a relationship that didn't work out before, or it could be something new. But the key around this is the passion is the thing that puts you in the driver's seat. Okay, so what I wanted to look at in this is kind of look at different sort of prompts that might help you remember. And I thought that I'd look at it from a visual, an oral, and a kinesthetic or feeling type of way. So I chose 3 different decks that I thought might represent that. So what we're really looking at here, what we're asking Spirit to do is help me get cards from these that are meant to prompt the memory. So it's meant to kind of bring it more up to the surface. So we'll start with colour, which is around visual. So for those particularly who are visually oriented, this will be a particularly important type of prompt. So we have silver, be persistent, okay? And we have orange, nurture yourself. Okay, so I think that this is going to work on a couple of levels. So firstly, around the be persistent, just around the literal things that they talk about, this is you trusting yourself. It may well be that part of the memory that you have from the past is that you moved too quickly from the passion into feeling the disappointment. And it was almost as though that became a consolation prize. You being able to understand and pick over it and use it as shadow work and all that kind of thing. is great, but in this case, it's important to connect in with this silver color of sort of like persistence, of building, of taking it forward, because there is something really key coming through and it has a lot of potential. And if it is around a relationship that kind of got caught in the day-to-day, I feel like it's be persistent beyond the monetary thing. So you see all these sort of silver coins here, beyond that, to move past what are the kind of practical aspects of this relationship and get back, say with orange, to the sort of fiery energy of it that is nurturing to yourself and to others. And it is important to nurture yourself. I think you are your own harshest critic when it comes to relationships. I think that, as I say, there's almost a comfort level in going into the, oh, well, of course it didn't work, because of X, Y, and Z. I think that is part of your patterning, and it's because, in fact, there is the incredible capacity for love and the incredible capacity for passion. It's almost like there's always the other side of the coin, like literally coin. So I think that for you, it's thinking about what would nourish you when you're sort of going through the wild hunt. Like what do you need to take on that journey so that you can be persistent, so that you can see it through and not presume when everything at first is sort of like passionate and wild and uncertain that it's going to go in a particular direction, because it looks as though you are meant to have victory for this. Okay, so let's think about oral prompts. So I'm using the Jukebox Oracle. So this is like musical songs, and it does tend to be about love, so it'll fit with this. So it might be the energies to sort of move away from, or energies to move towards. But again, it's just meant to be prompts to help you remember that passion, the wild hunt, that kind of energy for you. So this is for people who are very orally oriented, who what they hear is a way that they tend to remember or process information. That's the way love goes. Okay, all right. On bended knee. Okay, all right. So that's the way love goes, I think, is the pattern, the shadow pattern, as I say, that you maybe need to sort of remember that you go into, so you don't go into it again, so that you can be persistent and stay the course. So I think that there is a point in this memory. This is why the shadow and Charon came in, to say that there's always a point around passionate relationships where it moves from just the excitement into what is it going to be. So you need to remember not to presume that the loss of the passion, and it's not really even the loss of the passion, but the transition of the passion takes it in a particular direction that is not what you want, to persist because there's something more here. So think about that energy, about where you have programmed yourself to think that, because on bended knee suggests that you are heading towards something that is much more long term. And as I say, if you are already in a long term one, if you're thinking, oh well, at some point we just become friends because that's what's happened, get back to the passion which was at the point of on bended knee. Okay, and then let's get a prompt around feelings. So this is the Feelings in Bloom Oracle, and it's just it again, either feelings to remember so that you don't go in this direction again, or feelings to embrace as you sort of move forward and remember your passionate nature. Curious and vulnerable. Okay, so curious, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because some of that thing about where we sort of like sit in disappointment, like preemptive disappointment, is a way to protect ourselves because we feel vulnerable. If we have no other consolation, we can at least say we were right, but that could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think that one of the things you need to do is find the thrill in being vulnerable and nurture yourself when you're being vulnerable and so forth, establishing the healthy boundaries around this so that you feel that you're going through the transition in the direction that you want it to go, and stay curious. Follow your own intuition, because you are naturally calibrated to love. You are actually meant to be in love, and you're meant to be loved. That's part of who you are. So follow your intuition, but be curious about it and allow yourself to be vulnerable, because you're exploring. That's the kind of feeling nature to remember so that you can make the most of this new energy coming through. Okay, so let's get you some spiritual help, because it's all very easy for me to say do this, but when we're remembering patterns and so forth and transitioning them, that can be challenging. So I want to give you a couple of divine animal totems to help you through this. We'll look at some astrology and some other spiritual advice as well. So let's start with a couple of animal totems that can help you in remembering this wild energy and love energy that you have. Lioness, protection. So you'll be protected. And I also think that's you. I think that's that wild energy. It's that strength. Like go into your sort of innate king or queendom. Yeah, like there is definitely a sense of majesty around this. This is meant to be one of the things that you do. And I always think of like lion, groups of lions are called a pride. So have pride. All right. And we have peregrine falcon observation. So this is getting the curiosity. If you can get to a high enough level, as birds can do, to understand your own patterns, then you can see it more clearly. So there's something here about understanding the longer story rather than the shorter story in this, and getting to the persistence. And I think peregrine falcon will give you that perspective that you need. Let's see what astrology or numerology perspective will help you. Libra, 4th house, okay, and 6. Okay, so Libra is getting things in balance and having like a philosophical view. I feel it picks up the peregrine falcon energy of like having this perspective that you can almost kind of philosophically look at it and keep it in balance. So I think that's helpful energy around you. 4th house suggests to me this is either is a relationship that you're already in and you're reviving it because it's in the home, or it's one that leads to a new sense of home, a new sense of belonging. And 6 connects to sort of community energy, sharing, reciprocity, and so forth. I feel that either a relationship that had passion and has gone into kind of like domesticity is going to sort of revive around a shared purpose, maybe in some way with the 6 there. And sort of a different sort of like almost sharing of resources or sharing of responsibilities. Or if it's a new relationship, there's something around community, resources or whatever that brings it very close to home and brings it into your world so that this comes through. Okay, so we're also going to use the Aha Oracle for some energy spiritually, and also the Rainbow Oracle. So again, Aha to me feels like remembering spiritually. The Rainbow Oracle always feels creatively and visually. And then I'm going to finish up with the music oracles for a sort of amusing end to the whole thing. But let's just get you a couple of Aha Oracle cards. Okay, that's all about homecoming and community. Okay, so this is about sort of a pilgrimage and an offering. And then we have, as I said, homecoming, home, community, connection, all of that sort of stuff. There is something with this spiritually. You are meant to be in this relationship, whatever relationship it is, new or sort of evolved existing relationship, because there is a common purpose. And this may be the thing. It may be saying if it's a new relationship, if other ones haven't worked, there's been all the thrill, the excitement, all the stuff in your loving nature, but maybe not the connection on a common purpose. This is a longer term journey. And this is part of the perspective I think that peregrine falcon brings. And even as I say, that sort of sense of pride, the group of lions, is sort of like there's something that connects to community and family and all of that sort of thing around this. But it's a joint journey. So you're both on the wild hunt together. So that's a very powerful and positive thing. This is why it's important to remember your passion, because your passion is also connecting to what you want to do in the world, what your pilgrimage is, and finding that right partner for it. Okay, let's get a couple of Rainbow Oracle cards for you around the sort of almost visual color energy again for your spiritual approach to this. So we have Galactic Soul. As your energy vibration expands, you remember your galactic family. Okay, this is clarifying and saying that whether it's an existing relationship that you're reviving or whether it's a new one, this is part of your soul family. This is why it's important not to let it just become either humdrum if it's been a kind of daily sort of relationship already in place, or not to sort of expect the worst and not allow the freedom and the passion through if something new comes in, because this is a soul connection, definitely. And soul love. Oh, you can't write about it, can you? That would come up. The soul is boundless in how it unites with love. Cosmic encounters, soul connections, or a higher calling may be stirring. Yeah, it definitely is. So you are being asked to remember your openness to passion, your loving nature, your actually optimism around that, rather than whatever kind of pessimism that you started to sort of get into. Because whatever this love is, whether it's existing or one coming in, it is part of your soul family. It is a soul love. It's one that is of great importance. All right, so let's finish off with something a little bit lighthearted because I thought these sort of things could be fairly heavy. I mean, this is heavy in a good way, I think, as long as you don't sort of live into the shadow. But I wanted to use the music oracles. If you've seen other readings where I've used these types of oracles before, they're often quite amusing. So it could just be amusing, or it could have something profound along what Spirit wants you to remember. But it's just different musicians through history and their advice to you. So we'll just see what we get to finish off the reading. David Bowie, he comes up a lot. I think I have a great liking for David Bowie, so maybe it sort of naturally gravitates when I shuffle. But I also think David Bowie was the original, and very much about following his instincts and following his sort of sense of self and the joy and the passion of what he did. So I think that fits in with this sort of energy. He says, never lower your mask until you have another ready beneath. So this may be just making sure you feel comfortable as you go through this process, and you'll eventually, I think, lower your mask completely because you'll find this right person, or you'll have reignited a relationship. He says, cultivate strangeness and beauty will follow. So there is something unique and creative about you, and be sort of proud of that. And he says, seek the truth floating far above the moon. I always think when I see that quote, I think that's a beautiful, strange, esoteric quote. And I never know exactly what it means, but I think it is, if you think about the moon as emotions, there's a truth, your personal truth connected to this. And that is something that you can find through your heart and through your passion. So pile number 1, you're meant to remember what it is to be passionately in love, because you are meant to be again, and soon, I'd say. And this is a soul family connection. So remember the joy of it. Remember the thrill of the hunt, the chase, all the passion around it, because it's leading to something. And if you stay in that space and trust that space, then you will get to that destination with someone in your soul family. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So we have the 2 fairy forest cards for the sort of liminal space, some Greek mythology, some astrology, and some spiritual energy to have a look at what the nature of this thing is that you have forgotten that you need to remember. And this has to do with ancient knowledge, I have to say, and ancient, not necessarily, it could be oaths that were made, sort of like to maybe ancient, spiritual societies, communities, groups or whatever, or it could be, through magical practice, or it could be more just that the degree of wisdom and knowledge that you have at the moment that you're meant to remember and bring through is because you are going to need to make an oath or make a commitment to take and use this in some way, because there's a lot about esoteric stuff here, I have to say. The oath card itself, which may be what drew you here, is that sense of a promise or a pledge or a contract. It can literally come up if you are going to enter into a contract. So if anybody coming to this reading is looking at, starting a new job, doing something in a business, some sort of legal contract, there could be something about remembering wisdom from the past, and there could be very practical wisdom under those circumstances that it's important for you to use, remember, and access at this point. But for most of you, I think this is really about spiritual gifts. It's very, very strong. We've got the sigil keeper here, which is a magical being, and one that comes in signs and synchronicities and literally things like high magic, sigil magic, those sorts of things. So there's something that whether you know that it's another matter. This might be trying to remind you from a past life, or it might be something that you did look into and dabbled with at some point and didn't take forward, but there is actually a lot of heft behind it. There is something about remembering both your spiritual abilities and knowledge and wisdom, which are significant, and the gifts that you have, which are significant, and something I think that you've almost on a soul level pledged to do. Because it's interesting, Metis here is in fact the mother of Athena, so the goddess, I guess, of intellect and so forth. And the story is that she married Zeus and he thought she was the smartest thing ever. So what he decided to do was swallow her and have her within forever in that rather cannibalistic way that the gods in Greek mythology would do to own and acquire something. But that's why Athena sprung from Zeus's head fully formed, because Metis as a mother was within him. But it is definitely a sense of wisdom within, wisdom that has been almost hidden, I think, in a way. It's hidden wisdom. So there is something hidden, something esoteric, something occult about your wisdom and great gifts. Perseus is, of course, the extremely gifted god or creature in the pantheon anyway, who slayed the Gorgon, amongst other things. And the Gorgon is an interesting mythological figure because on one hand she was very terrifying and could turn people to stone by her gaze, but on the other hand, in many cultures the image of the Gorgon or the Medusa is used to ward off the evil eye. So there's just something about you guys. Definitely a lot of really strong spiritual ability and knowledge, and that there is something in that you are that you've almost forgotten. It may have been so much a part of you that you don't even see it anymore, for instance, but like there's something that you've forgotten, and it's coming out through ambition around maybe being in social media, being seen in the world in some way, or potentially around friendship circles and so forth. With Aries, there is an ambition here. There is a battle to win, a bit like Perseus with the Gorgon, and there is something about ascension. So this is profoundly spiritual. Whoever's come here, I mean, it could come out on the mundane, as I say, where there is wisdom that you have, gifts that you have, maybe that are going to be sort of seen in social context, social media or whatever, highly creative potentially, that you are maybe thinking about signing a contract or connecting with, and you're being reminded to use your spiritual wisdom and knowledge to make sure that you don't sign something that you shouldn't sign. So that's possible on a very mundane level, but I think for most who come here, this is about a spiritual mission, a very literal spiritual mission. So let's get a little bit more information from the tarot. So we're going to start firstly with a little bit more precise information about what it is that you're meant to remember. Then we're going to ask why, and then for Spirit's advice. So firstly, give us a little bit more information, Spirit, around Pile 2's part of their memory that they're meant to sort of bring back up to the surface. Okay. So the first thing that I'm getting here around the Four of Swords reverse is the sense that you need to come out from behind the shadows in some way. So you may be aware of what this knowledge is, but you've sort of almost forgotten about how you would apply it. Or you may have actually developed quite a bit of it in an intensive sort of, practice of meditation or something like that over, recent years. There's something coming out from sort of contemplation, and you know that there's a lot of work to do with it. And that's why it's important to remember this, because you have a big task ahead of you, whether it's sort of around work, whether it's around something political, whether it's around something spiritual. With the Ten of Wands, you're taking on a big burden. You are actually doing that. Just again, as Perseus was the hero, this is a bit about the hero's journey and coming out from the contemplation of it to do it. That's why it's important to remember this. Bringing an enormous amount of hope to people. I definitely got, when I put that out, star seed. So some people who are coming to this will have that kind of connection to that sort of energy. But even if you don't relate to that, there is something about bringing hope, because you've got this solution. Perseus was able to deal with the Gorgon. Metis did create Athena. So you've got a solution around something, and you put the hard yards into it. That's part of why you're doing it. I also get for some with star that this is pointing to astrology. Some of you may be astrologers, or it may be that you were in a past life and Spirit is trying to get you to pick that up again. It's something you're meant to remember. So the star's working on a number of levels here, I think. Part of what you're doing is dealing with where there is a lack of clarity around information. And I do also think for many of you, this is playing out somehow around social media or social networks. With the Page of Swords, I always see that as a social media card. When it's reversed, it would suggest that there are things to be sorted out. Wisdom is necessary in something in this. There's something about your occult or your more as I say, mundane wisdom that is necessary around issues in your social network, social media, that kind of thing. You're meant to be seen out on the world stage in some way with the world card there. And you're bringing something to a conclusion to then rebirth something else, I think, with the world. But you are a little bit out of balance at the moment. This is why you have to remember it. I think that it's saying you get caught up in the effort of it, and then you want to sort of go and sort of like hide away. And particularly if there's lots of sort of like pushback competition or whatever going on around, whatever social media or platform you might be using, that you get kind of caught up in that puts you out of balance. But remembering your real knowledge, your real wisdom, and how you can kind of bring things to completion. That's important, because there's a big burden that you're coming to take on. There is an oath. I mean, you are people who probably did sort of have a real sense of, this is my mission when I'm coming in. And you're very, very dedicated to it, but I think you've got caught up in sort of like some of the hyperbole around it. So it's like bringing your wisdom back. That's why it's important to remember it, I think. So let's ask specifically from Spirit, why is it important now? What's important now about remembering this spiritual knowledge and gifts? So some of this is about reconnecting to your heart, which is interesting, because the original cards feel very much like knowledge, wisdom, and all that sort of thing. Even Athena, as Metis's daughter, feels sort of like almost not virginal, but sort of separate from the heart. But there is a lot around reconnecting to your heart. So I feel that there's something about this oath card. I think there's something about whatever you came here to do that was very close to your heart. But with the Six of Cups, the Four of Cups, and the Page of Cups all reversed, it's saying you need to remember that, because something happened, I would say, with many of you when you were quite young that took you in a different direction. You may have been born in like a natural sort of witch or magician or spiritual seeker, and you came into a very conventional, scientific, secular home, or one that was very conservative about its religion. There was something that suppressed some of that, and that kind of got you caught a bit emotionally. It's sort of like you couldn't necessarily get the sustenance. I think for most of you, you weren't necessarily born into the family that aligns with your spirituality and with your knowledge. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your family, and you probably chose to come there to see something different. And I'm not meaning to sort of put your family down. I'm just saying that I feel like there was something where there was a disconnect. And so one of the things that you're being asked to remember now is who you truly are, what you've really come in for, and what you've brought in. Because there's a decision coming soon that you're going to need to make, and you're going to need to rally this information and knowledge and wisdom to make that decision. You think very differently to other people, probably very differently to your family, but very differently to other people in general with the Hanged Man reversed, which is what's going to be necessary, because it's coming from this ancient wisdom. But it's about other people being caught in emotional issues and not understanding what's going on. So I feel like you're in a very, very turbulent sort of environment, whether it's work, whether it's friendship circles, whether it's online, whatever there is. There's a lot of emotional mess, really. But your different way of looking at things and the decision that you can make will actually help. And it is about reconnecting in with this. This is why it's important for you to remember what you've come in with, basically. So let's ask Spirit for a little bit of advice. Just 3 cards for advice about really tapping into this memory. Okay, so what I'm getting very strongly, 8 of Coins is about learning and so forth. You have a lot of learning, but this is almost like remembering the learning. I do think many of you, things like astrology, numerology, there's a system, high magic, whatever it is, there's a system that is right for you. And one of the things that will help you, it's sort of like you'll start to sort of study it, look into it, and you're going to remember. It's going to bring it all in. You'll realize that you already know it, but you have to open the door. You have to allow yourself to look into this. It's not something I don't think that you've necessarily looked into in this life. So I think it's different. So if you've already done astrology, then there's something else as well, because I think it's something from another life. And it will come in incredibly fast and incredibly creatively once you see it. It's like you'll think, oh, I'm a novice doing this. So say you sort of started reading tarot cards, you might think, oh, it's going to take me months to learn all these cards. And then suddenly it's just going to flood in. and it'll take you to another creative level because it's remembering, literally remembering, and it will help you find the right people to connect with the Four of Wands. So I feel like most of you are in the wrong social networks, the wrong communities, not wrong families in the sense of, family is family, but there is a group that you are meant to be connected to that is more about what your background is. And I think that will benefit from you because I think you're very advanced in this background, but I just don't think it's something that you're focusing on. Now, you might have focused on it a bit and then put it aside. You'll probably know what this is, or you'll have a sense of it. And when you really start to go into learning it again with some structure, it all comes through very fast because you already know it. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So what I wanted to do firstly was use 3 different decks to sort of have prompts for your memory, because I wanted one that was around visual sort of color energy, because I think some people, their memory is evoked by things that they see. I have one that picks up music, so that's people who hear things that remind them, and one that is around feelings, so the kinesthetic side of things. So this is just prompts for people watching this who have different ways of sort of remembering, learning, and so forth. So firstly, let's have a look at color energy. So for those who are very visually inclined, what prompts can Spirit give pile 2 to access this ancient knowledge that they have? Blue, activate your healing power. Okay, for some of you it may be maybe what you need to learn is around sort of healing modalities, Reiki, aromatherapy, herbalism, something like that. Otherwise, I always think with blue it feels telepathic as well, so things that might look into telepathic sort of energy. Plus blue is also the throat chakra, so how you communicate. There might be something in using different modalities of communication using ancient knowledge as well. And another color card for you. Green, revitalize your nervous system. So some of this may be because there's a lot of burden around you. So it just simply may be Spirit wanting to say, like, use the color energy and what you remember to revitalize yourself, because this is a big mission that you're on. But it could also connect back between the healing power and green to things like, as I say, herbalism, things that are in nature. Being in nature may well help you remember. All right, let's look for those who operate on a sort of oral hearing level. So I'm using the Jukebox Oracle for songs. Now these tend to be about love, so it doesn't have to be about love here. I'm looking for the energy on a kind of musical or sort of oral level that might help in reminding you of your ancient knowledge, as I say. So the boy is mine. Close to you. Okay, so for some of you, there may be a connection in this to a key person with the boy is mine. It could also be that there is somebody that you have a lot of responsibility over. I sort of feel like the boy is mine. It's interesting because you sort of feel that sort of sense of the parental sort of connection with Metis as well. So there could be something like that it could be, for some of you, it is around a responsibility to someone that you are nurturing or caring for or that you love that is part of this. Beyond that, I am actually getting, for some of you, there may have been a male figure in history that you are reincarnated, that is you, that you may remember. So that's quite specific, but I think it could be for some that there is sort of like who in history kind of aligns with this as part of what you remember. And then close to you, I think, is about, this is picking up the telepathy. There's something about remembering this. It either brings you closer to a guide, closer to other people, closer to a psychological understanding. There is something about making connections about this. There's something that also brings in the people for you. So on a kind of oral level, listening to things that give you cues to say that you are close, that somebody is on a similar path to you, is important. I'm also getting for the boy is mine that there is something that you have that is very special that is yours. And at the end, maybe that was what was suppressed to start with. And part of you finding this is your creation that brings in the right people who allow you to have it as yours. It is what you bring to the table as opposed to other people. Okay, and let's have a look at feelings. So this is for sort of kinesthetic energy, where something in your body or something in your emotions helps you to remember something. Yearning and pressured. Okay. So this is something you will yearn for. This, what you really, it's knowledge that you want. In fact, you're probably a lifelong learner. You're probably someone who does yearn for knowledge, but it's like what is the thing that pulls you the most? If you were looking at 5 different types of modalities in spiritual, what pulls you the most? What do you yearn for? What is the sort of apotheosis of what you would want your spiritual development to be? That will help guide you. It is also something that puts some pressure on you, and probably also relieves pressure. So it's operating on both levels. I think it is, you are not looking at sort of just, oh, I'm just going to do Reiki 101, for instance. This is something, you are looking for something that puts you under pressure, like the pressure that, an oyster has with grit in it that creates the pearl. There is something very good in the pressure because it brings it out faster for you and it makes you remember more, putting yourself under pressure in a way. But it's also because part of what you're remembering is a pressure or an oath that you have come in with, not in a negative way, but understanding that, getting that sense of who you are and why that makes you yearn for the knowledge and so forth is part of the feeling energy that will bring this back up for you. So to also help you, I wanted to look at some different energies around it. I wanted to look at a couple of divine animal totems for you, some astrology/numerology energy, and then also just some spiritual advice as well. So let's have a look at what animal totems could help you in remembering this. Tiger, will. Yeah, there's a lot about the will. I think for many of you, this is something like high magic. That's what it feels like. High magic or something very, very esoteric that you are meant to remember. And that is also about understanding the will and taming the will and mastering the will. And it's also about finding your life path, because ultimately the will is about your life path. Okay, and let's see what other animal there is to help you. Peacock, prosperity. So you're meant to sort of do well out of this, become abundant out of it. That's that kind of magic, the magic of manifestation. Peacock to me also always speaks of alchemy, because, and I think I might have mentioned that when I was talking about the broken mirror tarot at the beginning, but one of its new versions is going to have a peacock card in it. Peacock is one of the key symbols after you've come out of the sort of negredo, out of the sort of the dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it. The peacock is part of that sort of burgeoning beauty and resplendence that is becoming who you are. So I think peacock is there for you for that journey. Okay, let's have a look at what energy around sort of astrology or numerology might be also able to help you remember. Ninth house. Yeah, there's education involved in this. There is actual kind of, like, it doesn't have to be formal study in the sense of going to university, but you could be doing some sort of like qualification that is helping you remember this. But there is definitely something about higher learning associated with it. But I think it's remembering for you. It's just that I don't think, unless you've done a little bit of it and, as I say, put it aside earlier in life, I think it's kind of remembering something from a past life. Okay, we also have ascendant. So yeah, who you are in the world, how people see you. People probably see you as a bit sort of like occult and maybe a little bit intimidating, maybe a little bit strange. But don't worry about that. But this is part of how you were meant to be in the world, and remembering that. And water. There's something about connecting to your emotions and having, because there is a lot of the suppression of this was emotional, so you've got to remember how to let water clear things out as well. So that's important to you. I actually get a sort of sense, when I was looking at ascendant there, that some of you, as I said, there might be somebody in history. Like I'm thinking of people like John Dee, who was Queen Elizabeth I's magician and astrologer, or Nostradamus, or people like that. There's something like that. There's something where I think you've been known for this before. Okay, so given it's deeply spiritual, let's get a couple of sort of decks that give spiritual advice. So firstly, the Aha Oracle, to sort of see if there's sort of anything on that sort of level of Aha, I remember, what kind of other energies might help you to remember what this is that you've forgotten, but you need to remember now. Okay. These are pretty funny in a way, because the spider energy here is about weaving your own web, creating what you want. So bringing things into being, which is manifestation, which is magic, and which is the highest order manifestation of the will. So I feel like the spider energy and the tiger energy are very strong for you. Some of you may have been born in the year of the tiger, potentially. You don't have to have been, but I'm just getting that could be the case. But certainly there's a sense here of you understanding the power that you have and being able to wield that in the world by putting it back into an almost academic or theoretical framework that, okay, that makes sense, I can see it. And then this is like a bell ringing. It's like music. It literally says, does this ring a bell? Which I think is pretty funny to be that card coming out in something which is like, what you need to remember. Does this ring a bell? Something is going to ring a bell for you when you start to look at the different things, and what else you want to put to your spiritual kit bag. And there may be a connection to music. Music may be important. And it's interesting. The last card in this reading is going to be the music oracle. So it'll be interesting to see what that has for you. Let's also use sort of, again, with a more visual or colourful energy of the rainbow oracle to see what else this is about for you. Emotional tapestry. Your emotions are a delicate tapestry that weave growth, awareness, and wisdom into your life. Here, there is something about emotions and water. This is where I think it was suppressed. But I think that by giving yourself the sort of intellectual framework and the kind of almost esoteric framework, you allow that emotional tapestry through. It finds its people. Okay, and divine feminine, flow in the rhythm of the divine heart, your cosmic gateway to all creation. So there's certainly something about, again, the sort of flow of emotions, creating the divine feminine. And it's interesting because we started with Aries, which feels like divine masculine. So there's something about balancing the divine feminine and masculine in you, using this esoteric knowledge to do it. So as I said, I wanted to finish with a card from the music oracles. If you've seen me use these oracles before, they're often quite amusing. So it might just be that, just a little bit of fun for the end of the reading. But equally, particularly as we've got, does this ring a bell here, it might have a particular message for you. So it's just a deck that has different people from musical history. And I just thought it would be an interesting way to finish it off, because I often find like music is a way that we remember. And a lot of people will say they can remember lyrics of songs for years, when they can't remember other things like poetry. So there is something about music. So that's why I wanted to use this deck. But as I say, it could just be funny. It's just funny. Just take the humour. See what we get. Grace Jones. Oh, she's fierce. Fierce, clear, very structured, like in what she did. The way that her aesthetic was very structured. So I think this is picking up the connection of the heart, the music, with the sort of structure and the formal thing. I think that makes sense. Her advice is, first, learn to be your own sugar daddy. Yeah, you don't need other people. You need to remember who you are, and you need the frameworks, and you may learn from certain people for that. But as I say, it will be relearning. It's remembering. She says, harness the power of an unexploded bomb, always waiting, always ticking. Yeah, that's pretty much the willpower right there. And to ensure survival, prey must become hunter. You need to hunt out your power. You need to be the Perseus. You need to be not hidden away like Metis. You need your sort of energy to be out there, because you've got an oath. You've got a mission to keep, and you've got a great deal of knowledge. Sorry about that, Pile 2. That noise was just a delivery coming. But I often think when that happens that it's really doubling down, it's spirit doubling down on what I'm saying. So yes, you do have a mission. You're here for a reason, and you have the knowledge, and that's what you're meant to remember. So I hope that resonates for you. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath going down the stairs. I hope it resonates. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, be really interested to hear about this. Beyond that, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So we have the two fairy forest cards here, a couple of Greek mythology, some astrology, and also some spiritual connection, to get a sense about what's the sort of general area in your life that Spirit thinks that you've forgotten that you need to remember. And this has something, I think, to do with magic. It has something to do with nature. It has something to do with reawakening a goal or an aspiration, or taking the next step in something. Like this card can literally talk about things like preparing for a job interview, but it's really, as the sorceress, bringing together through rituals and processes a better articulation and a better understanding and a better pathway for what you want to achieve. And the head switch is about using things like herbs and nature to do it. So I think it's working on a couple of levels for you, Pile 3. I think firstly, for some of you, this is literally about taking up some form of sort of herbal or nature magic in some way, like remembering that you have a natural ability for that, and taking that forward and connecting it to something, a goal that you had that maybe you put aside or forgot. There's something about that, about bringing your life into balance, your nature into balance, nourishing your body. For some of you, I'm getting this might be getting over an illness, like you are coming out of that and remembering what your goals were, and then what a more sustaining thing could be. So that may resonate for some of you. It's quite specific, but there could be something about health and trusting that you are ready to move and use those energies with trust here. Also trusting your own psychic ability, which I think is significant. I think one of the things that's happened with you, and Spirit wants you to be aware of it, and this may have taken you off course from a goal that you had, which Spirit is saying you need to remember now, is that you have got caught up a lot in other people's stuff. I think you're very, very empathic and very, very telepathic. And I think sometimes it might have been hard for you to really tell what was your emotion and what was somebody else's, what was your issue and what was somebody else's. So you need to be able to trust more your own inner knowing and your own pathway, not so much what other people, partners, lovers, friends, or whatever might want you to do. Because you may have felt with Icarus here like you were biting off more than you could chew. You were looking for the validation or the approval of others. Because Icarus, which they talk about inexperience here, but of course Icarus is the person who flew too high to the sun, too close to the sun, and so therefore the wings, the glue of the wings, melted and they fell. So I think that Spirit is wanting you to remember what your dream was, what your ambition was, whatever it was, and how maybe you felt lesser than other people, but trusting your own abilities because they're significant, and your own nature, and uncovering the secrets that might be behind that feeling. So I think that many of the people who've come here, you've either been in a family, you've been in a workplace, or around friends where there were secrets. There were, I think, covert competition as much as anything else. Things designed to make you feel that other people's needs were more important than yours, that other people had a clearer understanding, that maybe you were, maybe people said to you, you're a bit off with the pixies or whatever, that you're not grounded enough. Listen to us, do what we say. You don't know yet what you're doing. But Spirit is trying to say, no, there's secrets behind all of that. You have to learn who's the right people to trust, and the main person to trust is yourself, because there's a lot of insecurity from other people being projected on you in this sort of energy. You're actually meant to be the sorceress, the one who has the ritual and the power to bring into being whatever you want, and the knowledge of your nature and nature in general to make it better. And if you have been ill on some degree, then it may be that it was caused somewhat by something imbalanced around relationships where your light and your power was not really being seen. But you've come through that, I think, if that's the case, and you're ready to move forward. So Spirit wants you to remember who you are in terms of your capacity to follow your own dreams, not the dreams of other people, and not to let other people make you feel that you're not ready for it, because you are ready for it. So let's see a little bit more with Tarot about specifically what you're meant to remember, and then we'll also look at why. So firstly, a little bit more for pile 3 on what they're specifically meant to remember. Okay, so I'm going to go first to this, even though I think it is quite specific, but it came through again quite strongly. I think that some of the people who've come here, you've been through some major health issue, and you're meant to remember how you came through it and how strongly you came through it. The reason I say that is that we've got the Empress reverse, which feels to me a bit like, when this feels like health and healing knowledge, that being sort of suppressed. And then we've got the Death card, not that it was about death, but there was a major transition around this with the Queen of Coins reverse, which suggests not feeling the strongest constitution. So I think for some of you, what Spirit wants you to remember there, because the rest of the cards are about getting rid of other people's opinions here and owning your own vision, is that you are meant to remember that you can beat anything, really. Whatever this was, you beat it. You are ready now to move forward. And you did that. There may have been doctors and other people around, but ultimately it was your own will, your own constitution, your own fiery energy that did it, and that fiery energy is meant to be coming out with the Knight of Wands. So for some, that's the case. It's physically happened. For others, it has been around literally remembering who you are and your creative energy and your right to make decisions for yourself in the midst of a lot of pressure from other people. There is likely to be, with the Empress reversed and Queen of Coins reversed, a female or female identifying figure around you that has been suppressive or competitive with you. Also potentially a male one with King of Wands. This may not be gender specific. It may be sort of someone that is sort of was meant to be nurturing, but was in fact very competitive and sort of limiting in what they would give. You had to do what they wanted, limiting. So it feels like a nurturing figure, family figure, something like that. But it could be a boss. It could be a friend. A lot of emotional pain associated with letting them rule things. You are meant to remember this. The Knight of Wands is you, that kind of action, moving forward, the creative flair. Yeah, and like one might think that the Knight of Wands is a bit like Icarus, because the Knight of Wands and the Knight of Swords both often act before they think. And so you may have often been dissuaded by others because of that. And like it just feels like a bit of mind games to make you feel like you're not quite ready. You need to listen to other people. You need to learn from other people and so forth. But in fact, Spirit wants you to remember how much you can transition, grow, and how much you can bring to it, not listen to the rest of this. So I think for many of you, there is something around other people with mind games, and Spirit wants you to remember who you are and what you want in the midst of that, because all of that's sort of white noise. So let's see a little bit more about why Spirit wants you to remember this about yourself. Because you're very sensitive with Pisces, and sensitivity is a strength, but you might have been told it's a weakness. Okay. Okay. One of the reasons that you're being asked to remember this is because you are terrifically strong. As I said, Pisces is not weak. It's the sensitivity is not weak. You are terrifically strong with strength and the Emperor together. This is partly why maybe these mind games are played with you. And also for those that got better from some sort of illness, you have this really great strength. And Spirit wants you to remember that, because at the moment, you're getting caught up in the sort of painful side of things. This whatever this mind game is, it's hard for you to escape from those emotional patterns and to claim your right to make decisions, because there's a lot of pain. I think there's a lot of mental pressure put on you, a lot of emotional blackmail and so forth with that energy. So Spirit wants you to remember, you are meant to be the Emperor. You are strong. You can go forward and you can make your own decisions, and you can be the Knight of Wands. You can also be the Knight of Swords. So I said the Knight of Wands and the Knight of Swords were a bit like Icarus, but Icarus in the myth went too close to the sun too early. But you won't do that, because if anything, you've been held back. This is about moving you forward. Whether you were held back physically and now you're ready to move forward, or whether it was held back by others. Spirit wants you to know you are ready to move forward, definitely. And those things that were materially not working for you, you're meant to just kind of let them go. Do not stay loyal to people around you who are playing with your mind, with secrets and so forth. You have to, as I say, learn to trust more yourself than anything. That will bring the right energy in, because you've been too loyal to people who are not loyal to you by the looks of things. Okay, so let's ask for Spirit's specific advice around remembering this for you. What will help you remember? Okay, so interestingly, while the thing that has held you back has been, I think, in most cases, it has been, this would work with both actually, but I'll say firstly, in most cases, it's been with other people. The breakthrough is also still with being with other people, but the right people, but you making that choice. Breaking through and breaking down anything that isn't working anymore, but not to the point that you're isolated, not to the point that you feel lonely. This is about finding the right people, finding your tribe and so forth. And if it is around health, it's a breakthrough that was unconventional and understanding your own power with that, and that other people are a support for you, but the breakthrough comes from you, that you are strong. You are strong in so many ways that other people aren't. So I think it's just understanding the breakthrough that you've had and that you can still connect with other people, but it's the right people to connect with going forward. Okay, so to maybe help you with that, I wanted firstly to be using a few different oracles to pick up different ways that people remember or learn. So some people remember and learn from visual stimuli, some from oral, sort of heard stimuli, some from feelings, kinesthetic stuff. So I've got a deck for each of those, and we're going to pull a couple of cards from each. And they're not necessarily being read literally here. It's more around the prompts for you to remember. So firstly, around visual, I'm using a color-related card, set of cards. So for you, we have green, revitalize your nervous system. So for some of you, yes, it is about getting over a health issue and remembering how strong you are and remembering what you learnt in all of that so that you move forward. For some of you, it's literally going to be moving into some sort of herbal, aromatherapy, healing sort of practice, that connects to nature, or some form of, nature magic, kitchen magic, something like that. That is literally going to be it for some of you. And then we also have violet, create a balanced life. Yeah, it is about balance. At the moment, it has been out of balance because with violet, you see, you kind of connect to other people, third eye chakra and crown chakra really easily. That's the Pisces thing, and you may be taken in more than you should. It's about getting the balance into that and connecting more to the divine and less to the viewpoints of other people, I think. All right, so then let's also use the jukebox oracle, which has songs in it, and I'm using it specifically around hearing. So again, it's not necessarily going to be literal because these cards tend to be about love songs, but it's more what that can tell us as a prompt to help you remember your own inner strength, which I think is what this is about. So we've got, it must have been love, the sign, okay. All right, so for some of you, this is saying that maybe where you were kind of controlled or there were secrets might have been around a relationship. And I think if that's the case, that Spirit would be saying that, there could have been love there, but the reality is that may not have been the right thing. Beyond that, I think it's also saying love for what you do, make sure that what you do you love and it's not meeting what other people want. The sign says to me again that you are very psychic, very intuitive, look out for synchronicities and so forth. And because it's in the oral section, I think you may be sort of someone whose synchronicities come in things that you hear, like you're sitting in a coffee shop and somebody says something at the table nearby that triggers something, or you hear a song and that reminds you of something. I think there's signs that will come to you very much in what you hear in one way or another. Okay, and then for the people who are more kinesthetic, so people who, it's feelings, like what your gut feelings tell you, help you remember things. We'll just get a couple of feelings cards as well that might help you remember. And these don't have to be positive because not necessarily, sometimes we remember what we don't want anymore just as much as we remember what we do. So let's see what Spirit wants to point out. We have yearning. This came up for one of the others. So what's in your heart? What do you want? Icarus wanted to be able to fly. He didn't necessarily want to fly as high as the sun, but he got a bit sort of over his skis, I guess, but he yearned, and at least he yearned for something. Like what do you feel that has been denied you either because of a health issue or because of other people? What do you yearn for? That will help you remember this. And powerful. Try to stop me. Good. I'm so pleased to see that. It's exactly the energy you need to remember. Screw what everybody else thinks, basically. Just go for it. You are ready. You are powerful enough physically if you've gone through a physical thing. You are powerful enough within yourself. You are not inexperienced. Take your power, definitely. That's part of what you're supposed to remember. So to help you with this, so just a few other decks I want to use. Firstly, one which has divine animal totems, so the kind of animal energy that could help you. Then we're going to look at astrology and numerology and some spiritual aspects as well. So firstly, a couple of divine animals for pile 3, Spirit, that will help them remember what they need to remember. Swan, beauty. See, you're beautiful. You're perfect as you are. Maybe that very much makes me think that a lot of you, this was sort of something from childhood, family, or friendships early, because I always think of like the ugly duckling story with Swan, that there's such beauty, but often it isn't seen at first. Often it is not recognized, but I think you are meant to recognize your own beauty, and I think Swan will help you do that. And we have chameleon, change, being able to be what you need to be in whatever environment you're in. So if you are around people who are trying to play with your head, being able to recognize it and not let it touch you, but also be able to navigate that environment. So Swan will bring you to your own true inner beauty. Chameleon will allow you to move through different groups of people, understand the secrets, understand how to navigate it. Okay, so let's have a look with some astrology and numerology energy. So this deck has both those, so we will get maybe one or both as some other advice for you. Venus, beauty. You are, the people who've come here, you are very innately beautiful, whether whether you feel it or not, so, and whether it's, fitting some cultural cutout in terms of sort of physicality, or whether it's innately beautiful within, but understanding your beauty is really important. And we've got ninth house. The things you could learn out of this, learning that, higher learning and so forth, and expanding your sort of philosophical framework is going to be helpful for you. And Saturn return. Okay. So some of you may be around the time of your Saturn return. Like, it comes 2, possibly 3 times in a life, depending upon how long one lives. So the first one's between about 28 and 30. Second one's between about 58 and 60. And then the third one, I guess, would be between about 88 and 90. So they mean different things. I'm not actually sure what 88 to 90 means, but I do know Saturn return 28 to 30 is where you really come into who you are. So I think the greater majority of people, maybe who the Saturn return is literal here, will be in that kind of age group, but you don't have to be. This could be just the energy of the Saturn return is coming into your own strength, your own understanding, your own sense of maturity. So getting past this Icarus energy. If you are older, if you're in close to the second Saturn return, it's about having more freedom to be liberated and do what you want to do and be yourself. So either way, but as I say, you don't have to literally be in the age group for the Saturn return. I think the energy there just is about coming to a true understanding of who you are, as opposed to the energies of what other people might have wanted you to be. All right, so I also want to use the Aha Oracle for some aha moments in memory, and also the Rainbow Oracle for some other sort of visual stimuli spiritually. So firstly, the Aha Oracle for you. Lovely. Sorry, I just quickly, if you notice that move, paused it because I was sort of thinking about what this card means, and I wanted to make sure that I was right, that I was remembering the jukebox card, and I was right. So the jukebox card is talking about signs. So we talked about synchronicities. This card here is about synchronicities, about signs coming, about the pathway opening, about seeing who you should be. So I think this is again saying that you will be sent signs. Watch out for those. Watch out for synchronicities. There's a divine pathway you're following. And this is all, and why I said lovely when I put it down, is that this is all about chi, life force. So again, if there's anybody who's come here and it's been about getting over illness, you have got over the illness and the life force is really coming back. For those that want to literally move into herbal magic or herbal remedies and things like that, you are absolutely perfectly aligned to do that. But whatever this is, whatever the life force is coming in for you, you will have the signs to actually navigate it. Okay, and let's have a look at the Rainbow Oracle. So this, again, it feels kind of colour energy, but also spiritual energy that could help you remember what you need to remember. File 3. Awakened masculine, self-responsibility buckles you firmly into the driver's seat of your own life's direction. Yeah, your own life's direction. So having that ambition for yourself. Because I guess Pisces and things like that feel very receptive. And there is a divine sort of channeling energy in that card as well too, which is sort of Piscean. But it is for you to act, for you to take on the divine masculine sort of energy. And vibrational shift. You are shifting from your polarized world of duality to the freedom of heart unity. Yeah, you've been in a very polarized environment, I think. Polarized physically, polarized sort of in terms of mind games, whatever it is, but you're coming more into alignment with yourself and with the right people around you. That's why it said you don't need to be alone. It's not like this is about being the lonely pilgrim. This is actually about something in connection with the right people. So to finish off, we're just going to use a card from the music oracles, which can sometimes just be amusing, so it might be just that, but equally it may have some profound messages for you. I wanted to use the music oracles because it seems to me that one of the best ways we remember is through music. Most people will say they find they can remember lyrics to songs years later, but poetry or a piece of prose you wouldn't remember. So I just think it is a nice sort of way to close off the reading. So let's see who you get from musical history. PJ Harvey, wow, you go deep. And this is the thing, you go deep. That Pisces energy, really emotionally strong, a lot of depths to you, and that's maybe what kind of threatened people, but like owning that is important. She says, when in doubt, swim to new ground. Yeah, if you feel like you're kind of getting lost, look for the pathways, look for the signs, swim to new ground. She says, jam with others, but remain the lead. Yes, that's right. You can be with others, but there's something very specific that you're meant to remember and bring in. And she says, redream past lives. So it's really fitting in with this thing of remember who you are. So I would say this is a very strong indication that what you are developing into now around that kind of hedge witch sort of, healing sort of magic sort of energy is something that you've done before and you are not inexperienced at. So don't let anybody tell you that. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 3. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 4, to your reading. So we have the two fairy forest cards here, some Greek mythology, some astrology, and also some spiritual energy to get a sense about what is it that you have forgotten that you need to remember. And this has a very strong sort of, very focused sort of message. This, if you've come to the right reading, the issue that you are meant to remember about and take control of in some way is around your role in protecting others and also where you can seek protection and support from others. This has a very strong family, ancestry connection. It has a very strong protection energy around it, and it has to do with healing in some way. So for some of you, this could be that you are here and what you are meant to remember in this life is that you are here to solve generational karma within your family. Like this would be a classic set of reading cards for someone who was here for that purpose. The Weaver card, which may be what drew you to the reading, is about understanding your fate and destiny, but understanding how you weave that. And it is very strongly connected to ancestors, family, and so forth. If this isn't your literal family, it's about finding your soul family. But either way, there is something about the connections that are about protection and protecting. We have Athena in her personification here of being a protectress, that's hard to say, of others. So that sense of wisdom that comes with Athena and that sense of responsibility. We have the golden unicorn with your capacity to weave whatever it is around your ancestry and your fate, which is about bringing in a protector for you. This could be a spiritual guide, it could be another person, but it is about making sure that you have a champion and a protector as you go through things. This sometimes comes up when you feel abandoned, when you feel that you are lost and you are looking for that connection. So this could be where you've had a rift in your family, or there's been sort of issues around your social group or something like that, and you felt a bit abandoned or a bit lost. This brings in an energy for you to remind you, I think, of the role that you have and how much you could actually weave that history. And that, I'm sorry to say, it means with an energy like this, if you are here to deal with generational karma, for instance, or a group karma or community or something like that, there is a degree to which it is hard. It is not an easy pathway. You definitely have the strength, and Spirit wants you to remember that. And you have an innately protective nature. So you will do it whether you want to do it or not. And I think you will find the healing and heal others and bring more in tune with their nature. You're meant to do that, but it is important because it's difficult to have the right boundaries. And those boundaries are both around not being overwhelmed by what this is and what people need, and always putting their needs first, but also having the boundaries that allow the right protection in for you as well too. So one of the things that Spirit very much wants you to remember with this is that yes, you are here to do a pretty Herculean thing around not only your own karma, but that of family, friends, social group, whatever you're in. You're more than up to the task, and Spirit wants you to remember that. But not only are you here to do it, but you are also here to be protected and supported as well. And what can happen when you sort of go, okay, this is it, this is my role, I'm always the protector, is that sometimes you will put boundaries around where protection is coming for you. So part of your healing journey for this and understanding your nature is bringing that into balance. Spirit wants you to remember you have a distinct role, but there will be people to help you. So let's have a look what tarot can tell us in a little bit more detail, because this is a significant thing to remember and understand about yourself, I have to say. So firstly, a little bit more about the detail of it. Yeah. So firstly, with Temperance reversed with the Ten of Swords, there's definitely, it is a difficult battle in the sense that there is a lot of drama around all of this, and that's very karmic, a very karmic sort of feeling. Temperance needs to bring it into balance, sort of bring it back into alchemical sort of right order. But I would be surprised if anybody who's come to this reading, if you've come to the right reading, does not have sort of, chaotic or dysfunctional relationships around them in some form: family, cultural group, community group, political cause, whatever it is that you're in. There is a lot of drama around it, a lot of lack of balance, and part of what you're meant to heal is that, because you bring a different perspective to it. It's almost as though you are part of this ancestral line or this community group or whatever it is that you relate to, not because you were traditionally part of it, but because you traditionally weren't. You are the different thing. You are the vaccine brought in to deal with a virus, if that makes sense. You are that kind of thing, so there's that sort of energy around it for you. So that's interesting. Yeah, I think you have innately the protective energy, but you are not necessarily of the thing that you are protecting. So you may feel even in your family, oh God, if I'm here to do that, but I don't even feel at home with them half the time. That's about having the right boundaries to understand why you're here. You have the different perspective to bring in. You are definitely meant to be around other people with Nine of Coins reversed. You're not meant to be just doing everything on your own. And this is also tilting to the fact that you don't have to fight this battle all alone, that you will have supporters and so forth. With High Priestess and Ace of Cups reverse, there's a lot of heartache around some of this, but you're bringing in a spiritual understanding to heal the heart. And I get, it's interesting, I get with the Ace of Cups reversed here, I get it like the Grail Cup. So it's like the Grail Cup, it's sort of thinking about generational stuff or cultural stuff or mythological stuff. With the Arthurian legends, it's like the Grail Cup is tipped and the water has flowed out. You're here to try and draw that back in using sort of esoteric knowledge, using spiritual gifts, that sort of thing. But it's different. There's something different about you in the environment that you're in, but you don't have to do it all on your own. Okay, so let's ask why. Why do you have to remember this right now, Powerful? So partly because there's some big decisions coming up. For some of you, I'm getting with the Death card there, that there could be sort of mediumship operating. There could be passed on spirits that are around you from your sort of family or whatever this group is that you're connected with that are asking for your help, quite literally, or potentially even providing some of the protection. There's something at the moment around that, or there could be decisions that you had to make or that the group needs to make that are very, very key. It's part of the reason why it's important for you to be remembering at the moment. There looks like there's been a lot of tension, argument, anxiety, philosophical differences or whatever, and there's an opportunity for a breakthrough on that. This is long-standing stuff, I've got to say. And it's really, really ingrained belief structures that have almost become sly about their belief. It's almost like this is a group that could almost pretend to have got something and moved on, but would still be doing what it was always doing. This is deep-rooted stuff, particularly philosophically, and you are the crash through or crash type of energy coming through. It can't keep going like this. It can't. And there's been a lot of heartache associated with it, lots of potential. I mean, this would be classic for something where there was a rift in a family or something like that. But that breakthrough was what was necessary to sort of cleanse it and to bring in the new vision, which is what you can do with your different perspective. But there's a choice. There's some choice that's going to be key around this. So it could be around sort of family issues. Maybe, maybe even like an inheritance issue sort of brings everything to the surface or something if it's family. If it's a friendship or community group or political group, there's sort of something, a decision that brings a new way in that gets past a lot of sort of intellectual obfuscation and potentially even manipulation energy that's been around. But it has to break through. It can't continue the way it is. It can't. Okay, so let's ask Spirit for a little bit of help. 3 cards for a little bit of help in remembering this and getting that balance right of what you are meant to do, because it's considerable what you're meant to do, but also being able to recognise the right supports around you as well too. Okay, so this is saying that there's definitely a protector, a champion or whatever around you coming up as the Knight of Wands. So keep an eye out for that. It's likely to come from a friendship circle with the 3 of Cups, but equally in the friendship circle, there are some people not to be trusted. So this is about the boundaries. This is about getting this right. There is a champion, but there's also some that are part of this energy. Or that reflected. If this is in your family, but you have friends around, you might have drawn in unconsciously some friends who have a similar sort of mental manipulative ability and who maybe pull on your heartstrings, to look after them all the time. This person, the connection that you're going to have, will want to champion you. That's going to be the difference. They're not going to be looking to you to protect them. So that's the key thing to know. And the other thing to remember is to keep this in balance. So to help you, I'm going to start with 3 different decks that I thought would help as cues, because I think when we remember things, some people remember things visually, some remember them sort of with what they hear orally, and then some remember through what they feel. So I'm just going to pull a couple of cards from a deck for each of those sorts of energies. Not necessarily to read literally, but to read as what some of the prompts for this memory might be for you. So firstly, for the visual, we'll use a colour deck. Azure, protect yourself. Yeah, you do need to protect yourself in this environment. And that's getting the boundaries right and understanding what you're dealing with. And also letting your protector come in as well too. You're going to know that through what they say, I'm feeling, because it's blue energy, so throat chakra. Listen to what people say. You'll pick up when it's the negative energy. You'll also pick up when this sort of more protective energy is coming through. And another colour card for you. White. It's time to lighten up. Yeah, and that might be letting somebody else help sometimes. I do think you take a hell of a lot on. It is interesting too, because white is sort of like connecting to the crown chakra, so letting that sort of energy and advice and support in. Some of you, this protector may not be a literal person, it might be a spirit guide. But don't take everything on. You have a hell of a mission you've come for, and you are going to do a lot, but don't take on everything. Okay, so let's go to the sort of more hearing, oral one. So I'm using a deck that has song titles because I think there's something about music and lyrics and so forth. So this is, again, not necessarily to be literal, because this is sort of about love songs. So love could be part of this, but it's more what is the sort of energy prompts to help you remember your balances and your power and your energy and your role, but also how to protect yourself as well with it. So we have love is a battlefield. Yeah, okay. And we have quit playing games. Yeah, this is just you understanding what's going on. Whether it was in a love relationship, family, whatever it is, you've got their number, basically. Quit playing games. So I think remember that's part of the wisdom of Athena. This is this sort of sense, if you're going to break this, you cut through that. You have that different perspective of the hangman reversed. Okay, so that's pretty clear. So let's have a look at feelings. Let's have a look at what you might feel in your body or in your emotions that could prompt you to remember this. Apathetic, okay, and regretful. Okay, so I think that this is, I think this actually has a double message for you. I do think it could be saying sometimes when you are feeling apathetic, like, what is the point? I'm just in this sort of disastrous environment and I'm regretful about, everything that's happened. It could be a memory that you are actually here to do this. It could be to trigger you, to refocus you. I also think that it may be saying that you are surrounded by people like that are apathetic and regretful and stuck. And so the feeling that you get off those people is part of what will prompt you to remember. But it is about the memory of the balance, because that does not mean, as a protector and the breaker of generational karma, that you are meant to then just take it all on. They are meant to do something themselves as well. Okay, so to help you with all of this, I just wanted a few different decks that would give sort of spiritual support. So firstly, divine animal tokens, so like totems, not tokens, so that we've got some divine animal spirit energy to be helping you and supporting you. So we have sea turtle, stability. So in the midst of all of this, your strength and sea turtle sort of energy around you will keep you stable. So that's good, because I think this is significant what you're doing. And then we have armadillo, groundedness. Yeah, you're really, this is what's different about you actually. This is why, if you're in a family, you're different in your family. It's why if you're in a group, you're different in your group. You are very stable. You are very grounded. You know what your mission is. And that's partly what makes you very protective of others. That's part of your nature with Pegasus. So it's also these animals will help you stay in that space so that you don't get taken over by the kind of hysteria that seems to be around you. Okay, let's have a look at some astrology or numerology energy that could be helpful. Cancer, they're family again. Family, protective energy. You're that all over, and that's fine, and that's wonderful. It's part of what you're meant to remember about yourself, but you do also need to get protection yourself. 11, power number, and connection to the crown chakra, definitely. And Pisces, a sort of sense of sort of emotional openness and empathy and all of those sort of things as well. So you're very, very sort of psychically attuned to all of this, and people can pull on your heartstrings a bit. So be aware of that. Between Cancer and Pisces, you are very emotionally supportive and protective. But remember your mission, because that brings you back to 11, to the crown chakra coming, or the Keter coming down to the kingdom, or Malkuth. It is the sense of what you are here to do, what you're meant to do, and the power and energy that you're bringing in. Because you do care. You care deeply, actually. That's why you've taken on this protective role. But you can also get sort of overwhelmed by that if you don't have the right boundaries. So let's use the Aha Oracle and then the Rainbow Oracle for just a bit more spiritual guidance for you around what you're meant to remember, pile 4. So I might go to this one first, because this goes back to the grounded energy. This is all about groundedness, as solid as a rock, as sort of stable as a rock. The sun coming through, that sort of sense. You are always going to be dependable. Like, the one thing you're never going to be is someone that somebody says was unreliable. And if somebody tries to tell you that that's the case to manipulate you, you know it's rubbish, okay? It's rubbish, because you are very, very reliable. So there's that sense, and I feel a sense of ancient knowledge and ancient cultural energy there, because this card makes me think of Uluru, which is one of the sort of major First Nations rocks in Australia that we all sort of know about and hold in high reverence. So I think this is something, again, about cultural family traditions and your reliability. But you don't have to go fast with this, because this card is like the chrysalis. It's allowing yourself some time to think this through, plan it through, get your boundaries right. Things happen over time. You have the sense of the seeds here, and then the time sort of clock. There was not a clock, but I'm trying to think of the term for it. I can't think of it at the moment, so I won't say it, but you can see the sort of symbol of time there. Hourglass. So there's that sense of giving yourself time to let this grow and to become who you are. Rome does not have to be built in a day, so to speak. Okay, let's use the Rainbow Oracle for sort of more colour and visual spiritual energy for you as well. Lemurian soul. Your Lemurian soul swims in the sea of oneness. You're the earth keepers that hold the light codes of unity. Yeah, earth keepers. See, this is ancient for you guys. You've been protectors for a long time, and this is what you're meant to remember. And new vision. Your view of the world is changing. Look beyond the illusion to see the most spectacular views. Yeah, you are a new vision. You're this difference, this difference in the system that is what is necessary. The sort of Neo and the Matrix sort of idea. So, but around, as I say, generational karma or something like that. Okay, so to finish off, we're going to finish off a little bit lightheartedly with the music oracles. I chose this oracle because I think, as I kind of mentioned before around the jukebox oracle, that we remember music and lyrics more than we remember practically anything. Most people can remember the lyrics of songs 20 or 30 years ago that they used to sing. So there's something about music as a way to bring forward memory. So I wanted to finish with a musical icon from the musical oracles, which could just be humorous or it could be profound. So we'll just see what we get for you. Madonna. She seems to come up quite often with this. I think there must be a lot of people who come to my readings that have a kind of Madonna type spirit, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like her personally, but she was very much a groundbreaker. She was different for her time, definitely. So, and she has sort of like strong connection to her children, all that sort of stuff. So there's I can sort of see some of the connection here. What she's saying is everyone is entitled to your opinion. I think that I actually think that's funny, but I think there is a truth to this. There is a truth that you are going to bring, like a truth serum, and people need to hear it within whatever group, family you're dealing with. She says, pleasure without permission can be the greatest pleasure of all. So sometimes it's like you're just going to have to enjoy being able to do this regardless of everybody else pushing back and all the hysteria around it, because you can take some pleasure in your protection and in your healing energy. And lastly, she says, you are and always will be your own work in progress. And I think you understand that. I think that's why you can be a protector. I think it's why you can help with generational karma, because you understand everything is flow. We change. That's part of the whole process. Evolution. You're okay with evolution. I think the people that you're dealing with aren't. They kind of like to be right, and they get a bit stuck and they fight with each other. Excuse me. But you understand that even information, learning and wisdom is all a flow as well. So that's why you're the right person to come in and deal with this. And that's why it's important for you to remember that, but find the help that you need as well and be open to that. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 4. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. But otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.